Good morning. Welcome to our historical weapons program for this Monday morning. We are working on the foundations of the Tai Chi, Yang style Tai Chi single-edged sword, the Saber set. Over the last couple of introduction lessons, we've looked at different cuts. We started to look at the idea of making the house in terms of our blocks and deflections. We were starting to look at chops a little bit as well, and today we're going to introduce thrusting with the weapon as well. So we get some of these foundations together, then we'll start to look at individual sections of the set and start to bring it all together. Let's take a moment though to get ourselves warmed up, particularly our wrists and shoulders before we get that weapon in hand. So we'll just let the head rise and fall a couple of times. And looking from side to side. And we'll go shoulders back. And we'll go shoulders forward. We're going to go arms circle backwards. And arms can circle forwards. We'll reach up and droop and hang to one side and the other. One more time to the first side and the second. Let's let those arms go loose as we warm up the trunk. So let the arms go loose, twist through the torso a little. Good. And let's get the shoulders stretched just a bit. So we'll pull one across. And then same on the other side. And we're going to go over the head and pull. And same on the other side. And then we're going to go behind the back and pull. And same on the other side. Okay, I can shake that out a bit. Let's warm up the wrists. We'll make some circles one way. And we'll make some circles the other way. One more time, the first way and the second. Yeah, just kind of grab a few times, reach and grab, get the hands warmed up. Good. And we'll press in on the wrist, stretch it out a little. And then same on the other side. And then fingertips can pull back. And we'll do the same on the other side. And we'll shake it out. Okay, so let's take a moment here. Let's go grab our swords. If you're using a sword or doweling, we're going to start out like we have been doing with this sort of ready kind of position where we are cradling the sword in our forearm. So we're letting it rest in our non-dominant hand. So in this case, the set will be done as a right hand set. So we're cradling the sword in the left hand, and we want to kind of rest it to the forearm. And we're talking about how we can then kind of allow the sword to move connected to the arm. So traditionally, you kind of walk with the sword placed up against the side. This is how it's going to be when we start the set. We're going to have it up against the side. And one of the first things we're going to be doing is making some circles with the sword sitting in our non-dominant hand. So for today, let's just do this. We're going to come out, then we're going to bend the elbow and down. So we're going to make some circuits. So the sword is coming up, and you can almost see there's potential for sort of cutting up inside here. So we circle 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's kind of coming along our back. 8, 9, 10. And then we can go the other way. So we circle out and around, out and around. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and one more, 10. Good. And then we start talking about how we transfer by kind of sandwiching the sword between our hands. So we kind of bring the one up, and this is going to happen frequently in the set, right at the beginning, but also later as well, where we're going to kind of sandwich that. We're going to release the one arm, so it's still resting on the forearm, but now we're making our grab. We're talking about how we want the middle finger and the thumb kind of working together in our grip. We don't want to do a pinched grip. We want to have that bit of overlap. So we're kind of reaching up, and we're still kind of supporting the sword here. And that's where sometimes we're going to actually transfer into the forearm. So another interesting drill is to work from that crease of the elbow and roll this up so you can feel like you're pushing with your forearm and then the palm of the hand. So we can go lift forearm, palm of the hand. It's draped. I can bring that up. I can catch it. I can pivot to my forearm, and then I can press out to the hand. And we're kind of drawing and pushing a lot when we get here. Okay, so with that sword in the dominant hand, we were talking about how we're going to do a little bit of strengthening and coordination work each class while working on refining our cuts. Some of the things to keep in mind when we're talking about our cuts, remember, is we want edge angle and cut angle to come together. So we don't want to be scalloping our cuts and twisting our wrist when we cut, and we don't want to be slapping with the sword. And when we're talking about cuts, we're not talking about a percussive hit. Yes, there's percussion to it, but a lot of it's about drawing the blade across. And we talked about how we also have to recover so that heavy blade, when we cut with the blade, it doesn't take us off balance or too far away from what we're trying to do in terms of protecting ourselves. If that's what we're doing with the sword, we're mostly thinking about it in terms of exercise at this point. But we want to get those cuts. So we cut through and we're drawing. It's like pulling a violin bow across the strings. So let's start out with our downwards diagonals. So downwards diagonals, we're going to start at our shoulder. We're going to cut across. There's that edge angle. We're going to pull through. As we pull through, we want to be able to roll over the wrist, bring the sword up to our shoulder, and pull through on the other side. Here, we're going to roll over that wrist. And we talked about how those were deflections eventually, but we're going to go cut through for now. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Good. Now we're going to feel awkward. We're going to shift that sword over to the other hand because we're using the sword a little bit like a light weights program as well. So we're going to go cut down 1, 2, through up to shoulder and cut 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're trying to draw an X in front of us. 7, 8, 9, and 10. Good. We'll go back to our dominant hand. Now we're making our diagonal up from our hip. And our recovery as we come through to the shoulder, drop down to the hip, cut through, rest. There's kind of a moment here where if you were to take a snapshot and a pause, the sword's kind of rested here, and then we can come through to cut up from underneath. Let's do 10 of those on this arm. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what I find for a lot of people struggling with this is not to kind of sweep back and forth in the front, but to cut out in front of you. So you're not sweeping the floor, you're drawing that X. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. To that non-dominant arm, it's going to feel awkward for sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. So that's our diagonals. We've created downwards with that X and rising with that X. Let's go to our horizontals. We'll see this quite a bit in the set, and this is where we're also going to get those transfers. For now, let's not worry about the transfer. We'll get there in a moment, but let's think about coming along on this horizontal plane. And again, we're not stopping, we're not chopping, we're pushing and coming through. So sometimes there's a reference in sword work called sword presence from the arm, where if you put pressure on the tip of your weapon, you need to be able to push with your forearm and your wrist to push into the blade, to put pressure on the blade so that we're pressuring it when we cut. Let's go to our horizontal. So across, turn over, out, turn over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we talked about how we could change levels. We could go high. 6, we could go in that middle. 7, you could be cutting across lower. 8, 9, 10, and to the non-dominant arm, across and back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. And then we were talking about verticals, particularly downwards verticals so far. And we're talking about the two main verticals. One stays on the sword arm side. So we're cutting down. Again, it's a pulling through. It's a cut and a turnover. We're talking about how that turnover becomes a deflection later. So we're cutting down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we want to be able to cross over to the non-sword side and create that arc down and around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's take it to the non-dominant arm. So our first one is sword side, cut down, come around. So you're reaching, pulling the cut. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we go to the opposite side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Then last week we started talking about what's the difference between the chop and the cut. So the cut has a returning pull to it, whereas the chop tends to have a not deflecting, but a ricochet, a return in the same path. So we tend to chop and return a little bit more. If we're going to come through, we're going to cut. You can see, watching the end of the sword, how it's a difference between a percussive kind of bump and a slicing motion. So let's go to a few chops, helps to work on the forearm strength. So we go chop, return, chop, return. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll do the same on the other side as we work up the strength for this set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now let's just do an outside horizontal chop for today. So we're going to come across and return. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Same on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Okay, so let's review a little bit of the concept we were using, so this concept of walls and roofs and floors around us. So one of the things we're going to have is this kind of pushing down with the sword. So again, we were talking about with the single-edged sword, we have this ability to brace and push off of different parts of the body to help with what we're doing. So we can make a wall, we had the idea, or sorry, a floor, something coming in, somebody cutting up and inside, and boom, we're pressing down and away. And we're going to see this sometimes with the foot up. Sometimes you'll see it a little bit more circular kind of motion or a straight kind of pressing in. Then we talked about roofs, how we can go. I like the way this is described a bit with the Filipino arts, where you think about the roof of a house and you're looking out of the attic. And again, we can do this with a single arm, or we can brace with the shoulder, we can brace with the forearm, we can brace with our palm as we start to make a roof one way. And then if we tip and come through, we can also look out of that attic window the other way. So we've got one side, other side. You can see from a bit of a ready position here how I could be deflecting 1 or 2. 1 or 2. So we've got one side, other side. So I'm pulling that handle down, I'm raising up. And you can notice I'm kind of pivoting around the middle of the sword to do this. One side, other side, one side, other side. So I'm working those roof angles. We talked about the sort of high wall, low wall, and there's a few ways to do those. There's where we're kind of using the back edge of the blade to kind of come one way. We can use that sort of upright, one side, other side. So we're just kind of turning from side to deflect. And quite often these deflections, the idea is they're setups for returning cuts. So we might come in and deflect. So really in the path of our rising diagonals and things, we could turn that into a wall over here and then cut back. We could think about turning out here and kind of deflecting and coming back. We can just kind of use the back of the sword to knock something away. We can curve and twist from side to side. And that covers a lot of our sort of upper wall area. Sometimes tip down, so we could be pressing something one way, pressing something the other, tip up, we come one way, out to the other. So we have all these deflections, and you'll see them, they're hidden inside the blending of movements from deflections to cuts, from deflections to cuts. We also can do that down low, and we see this as we're cutting through, and those times where we sort of turn over the sword to get, remember I was saying those recovery moments can also be deflections. So I'm deflecting one way, I'm deflecting the other. So there's my low walls. I'm coming around one side, I'm coming back on the other. Now we'll see sometimes that we might come around, and then we're going to get into some of the other stuff we've been talking about, how to thrust. 1, 2. So floor, wall, 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 roof, roof. We'll keep coming back to that. We'll keep reviewing that stuff so it becomes comfortable as you go, and you'll start to see it as we start to develop the set, that these are all tucked inside the movements of the set. So thrusts are the next level of our potential attacks. We've had our cuts and slashes, we've had our chops, we've talked about a little bit about, deflecting things, moving things from side to side, one way or another, or one way or the other for our walls. But now let's talk about thrusting. Now with a curved weapon, thrusting is a little different than our straight sword work, but our first kind of thrust will be just a straight drive in. So we could push that in. Now we have to think a little bit about the angle of the tip. So we tend to start with the handle up a bit higher, and then kind of as it goes through and in, we can push up slightly, but we're thrusting out. So you could pull back, thrust out, you could pull back, you can thrust out. Sometimes we see this sort of open and press. So this is edge down and straight forward and in. Now there's a variation of that we're definitely going to see in the set quite distinctly, where it really goes in an arc up. So we're driving up and underneath. So we're coming up into the throat area, we're coming up through the solar plexus just under the ribs area. So we're driving and pressing upwards. In the set, we're going to really make that big, and it's going to come right over to the other arm. But for now, we can just kind of think of, instead of straight out and through, we are curving upwards, driving upwards. Let's try a few of those. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice how my feet are connected to that. I need that pressure from the ground to help drive that in. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so one of the other main thrusts we're going to see in the set, remember we were talking about stirring the pot as part of our walls last week when we were working on this. We were talking about stirring the pot, and then from here what we're going to do is we're going to turn the blade flat, and we're driving in with the tip as we come forward. This is hard to show. I'm going to angle my blade so it reflects a bit more. So I'm driving inwards, my edges parallel to the ground as I drive in. Now sometimes that can be a kind of sliding cut, but most of the time it is a thrust through. We're angling, we're spiraling this so we can slot it inside the rib cage and through and in, and we've got this thrust. So let's take it like we'd see in the set, where we kind of circle and then we drive. We circle to deflect and we drive that in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, last one, 10. Okay, so if we can thrust up from underneath, we can also thrust down from on top. So we're coming in and down. This takes that curve and kind of drives it down and inwards. So we're going over 1. So we've got that rest position. We talked earlier about the rest position turning into cutting or rising cuts. That rest position, we can also go down and inwards with thrusts. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. So let's look at one more thrusting technique today. And this one, we're going to kind of flip over the sword. So we've got that, we've talked about that wall coming across the bottom. We can flip this over, and now what we're going to do is we're going to push out. So now our edge is up and we're pushing out. So this one, we were coming over with that same kind of motion, but now, remember saying same side, cross side, now I'm kind of crossing over my body a little bit, and then I'm thrusting out here, where I'm driving that blade forward. So for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to bring it in and push it out. We're going to bring it in, we're going to push that out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Okay, so let's review some of the thrusts that we worked on today. Edge down, straight kind of motion, a little bit of curve up, but we're staying kind of low with this. We had that same one that could arc upwards and inwards, so we're driving up and in. We talked about coming over and down, so now we're thrusting downwards. So we could go from rising thrust to downwards thrust. We talked about this sliding, so we're going forwards, but we're turning the blade in that motion as we're rolling to the side and coming in. So we have that kind of thrusting, and we had this flipping over, so we're almost resting the sword against our shoulder, and that's where we can push out and away with this motion. So we're driving out, we're coming back, we're driving out, we're coming back as we push into the blade. Okay, so that's our bunch of our major thrusting directions with the sword. You know, there's sometimes we can come around from the outside and in, but those are our major ones that we'll see inside of our set. So last week we were also talking about this wall movement. And one of the things we want to learn that's going to come up in the set a lot as well, and it's good to kind of practice outside of it, is making that wall and then allowing the sword to drape across to the other side. So what we're going to try and do here is we're going to try and go one side over to the shoulder and back. So we're kind of rounding our back and able to bring the sword around and over our shoulder. And this is going to lead to a bunch of different techniques and a way of blending from our roof techniques into some of our cuts, into some of our chops. So let's do a roof to chop where we come around the body and then we can chop out. So we're going to go around the body. So we're making our roof where we're dropping the elbow. Oh, sorry. No, we're not. We're making the roof where we're supporting with our arm. We're coming around to our sword side and we're chopping down. So this is a great drill where you go deflect, chop, deflect, chop. So you're deflecting, you're coming around, you're chopping down. Let's try 10 of those. 1, 2, and we'll think about this second arm as we get going. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. So if we can make that roof around this side to chop, we could also make it to that roof into our diagonal downwards cuts. So you can kind of play with that. You can make that roof and come out with a horizontal. So it's a way of blending that deflection and trying to get back over to the sword side without trying to come forward, but with that slip through. So the other version of this now is that I'm going to drape across the back. come over my shoulder and cut down. So let's do a downwards diagonal with this one. So we're going to go here. We're kind of rolling the sword. We're rolling the sword through that roof pattern over the shoulder, cut down. So we go around, 1, cut, 2, cut. And sometimes you'll see this just kind of come behind and over without as much roof. It's more of a recovery and cut, recover and cut. So instead of recovering and coming this way or recovering and coming back up, we recover and come over and back through. Last 4. 1, 2. Or you want to really think about the deflection, you can deflect and cut. 3 and 4. Okay, transfer that back to your other side. Whew, good work on that shoulder and arm. So we've worked over the last 3 lessons on trying to get all those foundations. The best thing you can do for yourself as we start to head towards the set is take some time to get comfortable. Downwards diagonals, rising diagonals, horizontals, verticals, difference between chop and cut, roofs, walls, floors, and then all of our directions of thrusting. Okay, we're going to leave it there for today. Thanks so much for training hard today, and we will see you next week. If you are here live and you got some questions, let me know. I'll take those right now. If not, text or email me, and we'll bring stuff into the next lesson to answer those questions that you have so we can progress you through this sword. Thanks for training today.